More than 70% of BMW engine problems start right after an oil change. And it's not because of bad oil, it's one missed step most owners never realize matters. Mike here, and after more than 20 years working on BMW engines, I keep seeing the same pattern repeat itself. Even strong engines like the B48 and B58 lose years of life from small mistakes made in the first few minutes after service. In this video, I break down exactly what BMW owners should do after every oil change to protect engine life long-term, and step number 12 alone has saved owners thousands in avoidable repairs. Let's get started. Step 1. Recheck the oil level the right way. The first critical moment begins with the oil level itself. Most BMW owners check it once, see the reading near full, and assume everything is perfect. That first reading is often misleading. Fresh oil does not instantly settle into every passage of a BMW engine. It must fill the oil filter housing, turbo feed lines, Vanos galleries, and upper camshaft journals before the level stabilizes. On engines like the B48 and B58, that circulation can take several minutes after startup. The correct method requires patience. After filling to specification, let the engine idle for 60 seconds so oil reaches the full lubrication system. Shut it off, wait at least 5 minutes, then recheck through the electronic level system. Skipping this second check is one quiet reason some BMWs end up running half a quart low without the owner ever knowing. Half a quart may not feel serious today, but over thousands of miles it increases where oil pressure matters most. And once the level is correct, the next step becomes just as critical. Step 2. Let the oil circulate before revving. Mistakes at this stage create long-term damage because oil pressure is not instant. Even in modern BMW engines, fresh oil needs time to travel through the pump, fill the filter housing, and reach turbo bearings, Vanos actuators, and timing components before full protection begins. During the first few seconds after startup, large parts of the engine are still operating with minimal oil film. Revving immediately after an oil change feels harmless, but it forces components together before lubrication stabilizes. Industry wear studies show that over 60% of engine wear occurs during startup phases, especially in turbocharged engines running tight clearances like BMW's B58 and N20. A calm idle for 30 to 60 seconds allows pressure to build properly and stabilizes oil flow to critical components. This simple pause reduces stress on timing chains and protects turbo shafts spinning well over 100,000 RPM. It doesn't feel like much in the moment, but those calm seconds quietly add life to the engine. And what happens next on the road matters just as much. But before that, if you're liking this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. Step 3. Prime the system with a gentle drive. The next protection stage happens on the first drive after service. New oil does not provide full protection until it circulates under real operating load and reaches a stable temperature. A gentle 10 to 15 minute drive after an oil change allows oil to fully coat piston skirts, pressurize hydraulic chain tensioners, and stabilize Vanos timing behavior. Hard acceleration during this period forces cooler, thicker oil through tight clearances and increases resistance across turbo bearings. Oil analysis data shows engines driven gently after service produce roughly 30% fewer wear metals during the first 500 miles compared to engines pushed hard immediately. On BMWs like the F30 or G20 this difference shows up later as quieter timing chains and smoother cold starts. The goal isn't slow driving forever, it's simply allowing fresh oil to settle into its job before demanding maximum performance. That short drive protects the work you just paid for. And once that's done, the next hidden step prevents one of the most overlooked post-service failures. Step 4. Always check the oil filter, housing and seals. One of the most common causes of sudden oil loss on BMW engines after service comes from the oil filter housing and its seals. Unlike many engines, BMW uses a cartridge-style filter inside a reusable housing. If the cap is over-tightened, cross-threaded, or the old O-ring is left in place, oil pressure can drop silently without an obvious leak. On B48 and B58 engines, even a small seal issue can lower pressure enough to stress turbo bearings within minutes. The correct procedure is simple, but often rushed. Always replace the O-ring with every oil change and lightly coat it with fresh oil before installation. Torque the cap to specification, usually around 25 Newton meters depending on model. After startup, inspect the housing area carefully for seepage. I've seen owners drive hundreds of miles with slow leaks that eventually triggered low-pressure warnings. By then, damage had already started. A 2-minute inspection protects a 000 turbocharger. Once the seals are confirmed dry, there's another system that many owners forget to reset, and that mistake quietly affects maintenance timing. Step 5. Reset the oil service system. Correctly, modern BMW engines rely heavily on condition-based service calculations. The system tracks mileage, temperature, driving style, and engine load to determine when service is due. If the oil service isn't reset correctly after a change, the car continues counting from old data, which can trigger early warnings or delay the next service interval by thousands of miles. BMW service data shows that vehicles with incorrect service resets often exceed safe oil intervals by 2,000 to 3,000 miles, simply because the system believes the oil is newer than it actually is. That gap increases varnish buildup inside Vanos solenoids and timing chain guides. Resetting takes less than a minute through the instrument cluster or iDrive menu, yet many quick shops skip it entirely. After every oil change, confirm the interval shows full life remaining before driving away. Clean oil without a proper reset is like replacing brakes, but leaving the warning light on. The hardware is ready, but the system thinks it isn't. And once the service system is synced, the next check focuses on something that directly affects oil contamination. Step 6. Inspect the PCV and crankcase ventilation system. The crankcase ventilation system is one of the most overlooked components after an oil change, yet it directly affects oil quality and engine longevity. BMW engines like the B58 and N55 rely on a complex PCV system integrated into the valve cover to control pressure and vapor flow. When it begins to clog or stick, fuel vapors and moisture contaminate fresh oil far faster than expected. Symptoms often appear quietly: slightly rough idle, increased oil consumption, or a faint whistle under load. Left unchecked, excessive crankcase pressure can push oil past seals and accelerate carbon buildup inside intake pass. Replacing a failing PCV setup early might cost $50 to $0, while ignoring it can lead to multi-thousand-dollar gasket or turbo issues later. After every oil service, a quick inspection for unusual vacuum sounds or oil residue around hoses can catch problems early. Clean oil cannot stay clean if crankcase pressure is unstable. Once ventilation is confirmed healthy, the next step focuses on something drivers usually ignore completely: how the engine sounds after the service itself. Step 7. Check for valve, cover, and oil filter housing leaks. BMW engines often develop small oil leaks that stay invisible for months because the oil burns off on hot components instead of dripping onto the ground. After an oil change, this is the perfect time to inspect the valve cover perimeter and oil filter housing area closely. Engines like the N20 and early B48 are known for gasket seepage that starts slowly but accelerates once heat cycles continue. A leak losing only half a quart every 1,000 miles may never trigger a warning, yet it quietly reduces lubrication reserves. I've seen ignition coils fail simply because oil seeped into plug wells over time. A zero gasket ignored early can become a 0-0 repair involving coils and sensors later. After your oil service, run the engine briefly, then inspect for fresh residue around seals and plastic housings. Catching leaks early protects both the engine and electronics. And once leaks are ruled out, the next step focuses on something BMW owners rarely monitor until it's too late: oil pressure itself. Step 8. Monitor oil pressure, not just warning lights. BMW's oil warning light is not an early alert. It's a last resort. By the time it appears, pressure is already dangerously low and internal wear may have begun. Engines like the B58 rely on stable oil pressure to protect turbochargers, Vanos units, and timing chains. A brief drop at highway speed can create damage long before the dashboard reacts. Scan tool data shows healthy warm idle pressure usually sits around 20 to 30 psi. rising significantly under load. Sudden fluctuations after an oil change often point to incorrect viscosity, a faulty filter insert, or an improperly seated housing cap. I've seen owners assume everything is fine because no warning appeared, only to discover accelerated turbo wear later. A quick check with live data during the first drive gives early confirmation that oil flow is stable. Oil pressure is your engine's heartbeat. Watching it early prevents guessing later. Step 9. Stay consistent with oil brand and service records. BMW engines respond best to consistency, especially with oil chemistry. Each manufacturer's additive package works differently, and constantly switching brands can reduce long-term protective film stability inside the engine. Engines maintained on one BMW-approved LL01 or LL17FE plus oil often show lower wear metals in oil analysis compared to engines that change formulas every service. Keeping records matters just as much. BMW service history directly affects resale value and warranty discussions. Vehicles with documented oil changes can retain 10 to 15% more value and avoid disputes when issues arise. A simple app or notebook tracking mileage, oil type, and filter brand creates clarity years later. I've seen identical B58 engines with very different internal condition simply because one owner kept consistent oil and records while the other guessed service dates. Consistency builds protection over time. Step 10. Match oil to your driving style. BMW specifies approved oil grades, but real-world driving decides what your engine actually needs. Short city trips create fuel dilution and moisture buildup because oil never reaches full temperature. High-speed motorway driving or spirited runs create extreme heat that stresses additives differently. Data from oil analysis shows that engines used mainly for short trips can degrade oil up to 35 to 40% faster than engines driven longer distances. Turbocharged BMW engines like the B48 and B58 depend on oil not only for lubrication, but also for turbo cooling. Using generic bulk oil during service may meet minimum specs, but often lacks long-term thermal stability. If your driving is mostly urban, shorten intervals and use high-quality synthetic approved to BMW standards. For heavier loads or hotter climates, extra attention to viscosity choice matters even more. Oil isn't one size fits all. Matching it to how your BMW actually lives protects internal components far better than simply following the sticker. Step 11. Flush carbon. Before it hardens. Carbon buildup is silent and gradual, especially in direct-injected BMW engines, where fuel no longer washes intake valves. Short trips and low-temperature driving allow deposits to accumulate around piston rings and oil control passages. Over time, this leads to rising oil consumption and timing component noise, even when oil changes are regular. I've seen engines around 80,000 to 100,000 miles develop noticeable efficiency loss simply because carbon was never addressed. A gentle engine-safe flush before draining old oil helps suspend soft deposits, so they exit with the used oil instead of hardening permanently. Laboratory results show engines maintained this way often display lower wear metals and cleaner internals over long intervals. The goal isn't aggressive chemical treatment, it's controlled prevention before deposits lock into place. Ignoring carbon allows small buildup to become permanent wear. Managing it keeps ring sealing and oil flow healthy. Step 12. Watch for oil aeration and early warning sounds. Fresh oil should look smooth and stable on the dipstick. If it appears foamy or full of bubbles, that's oil aeration, often caused by overfilling, incorrect viscosity, or aggressive driving before full warm-up. Aerated oil can lose up to 50% of its load-carrying ability, leaving bearings and cam surfaces unprotected. BMW engines are sensitive to this because high RPM operation and turbocharger load rely on consistent oil film strength. I've seen owners chase mysterious ticking noises after an oil change only to discover the oil level was slightly too high, causing foam at highway speeds. After service, listen carefully during the first cold start. Light ticking that fades quickly can be normal, but persistent chain rattle or knocking is a sign something isn't circulating correctly. Early noises often appear 5,000 miles before major issues show up. Foamy oil and unusual sounds are warnings, not quirks. Catching them early protects thousands in potential repairs. Step 13. Listen carefully for post-change engine sounds. Right after an oil change, a BMW engine often reveals its true condition through sound. Fresh oil can briefly mask wear, but it can also expose weak components that rely on immediate oil pressure. A short ticking noise from the valve train or Vanos system during the first cold start usually indicates delayed oil flow. A deeper knock or persistent chain rattle can point to tension or wear, something I see often on higher mileage N20 and early B48 engines. BMW service history shows many major timing repairs begin with new noises noticed within 1,000 to 2,000 miles after service. Ignore those sounds and small wear turns expensive quickly. The experience move here is simple. After every oil change, listen with the radio off during the first few drives. Engines that stay quiet after fresh oil almost always live longer. And once your ears confirm everything sounds healthy, the next step protects what's happening internally over the long term. Step 14. Stick to one quality oil brand. Long-term, BMW engines respond well to consistency. Every oil brand uses its own additive chemistry, and constantly switching between formulations can prevent protective films from stabilizing on internal surfaces. Oil analysis consistently shows lower iron and aluminum wear metals in engines kept on a single BMW approved oil over many service intervals. I've opened B58 engines at 120,000 miles that looked almost factory clean simply because the owner stuck with one LL01 approved oil and regular intervals. Engines that bounced between random shop oils often showed varnish and uneven deposits much earlier. The suggestion I always give is straightforward. Pick one reputable oil that meets BMW approvals and stay with it unless there's a clear reason to change. Consistency beats marketing claims every time. With lubrication chemistry stable, the final step focuses on something simple that many owners still skip: documentation. Step 15. Log every oil change. Without fail, BMW engines rarely fail from one mistake. They fail from forgotten patterns. Missing one interval by 3,000 to 4,000 miles can accelerate sludge formation and timing wear, especially on turbocharged engines. Keeping a simple log, mileage, oil brand, viscosity, and filter type, creates accountability and helps spot trends early. Dealers and buyers also value documented maintenance. Vehicles with complete records can retain 10 to 20% higher resale value compared to similar cars with unclear history. I've seen warranty discussions go much smoother when owners had detailed notes instead of guessing service dates. My advice after years around these engines is to make logging automatic. A phone note or spreadsheet takes seconds but protects thousands in future repairs. And once your maintenance history is clear and consistent, you're ready for the final recap where all these steps come together to double long-term engine life. Final recap. So there you have it. Every step after an oil change protects three things that decide how long a BMW engine survives: oil pressure, temperature control, and internal cleanliness. Skip these details and wear builds silently, showing up years later as timing noise, oil consumption, or expensive turbo repairs. Follow them consistently, and engines like the B48 and B58 can stay smooth well past 200,000 miles. If this helped you, drop a comment with your BMW model and mileage. Subscribe for more real-world BMW insights, and watch the next video where Mike shows what truly makes a BMW engine run like new again.